Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I have another video for you guys from Sith the Programmer. This one ranking every Sith from weakest to strongest. Now I'm not all that familiar with every single Sith from the expanded universe, so he's gonna probably go over some characters here that I'm not all that familiar with, and I'm not all that familiar with their lore, so I won't be able to comment on whether what he's stating is accurate or not, and I won't be able to offer a lot of commentary, but I am curious to see this video to see exactly what other Sith there are in the expanded universe other than the ones that I am familiar with. So let's go ahead and watch this video.
The Sith have had many legendary and overpowered members over the years, and to be quite honest, there's not a single one that is weak in any real way. You have to.
No, I don't think there's any Sith. Like none of the Sith that I do know from the expanded universe are weak. It's just that, when you think about it, some do rank clearly above the others. So
imagine these are the main antagonists of pretty much the whole Star Wars franchise, and they just
still to this day the only good scene from Rogue One. Everything else was kind of bland, but this was pretty damn good. There's a reason why everyone raves about this scene.
Antagonists of pretty much the whole Star Wars franchise, and they just kind of annihilate and go beast mode on literally everybody the entire story.
And this is still the best lightsaber duel. Best one in the entire series. Like no other duel even comes close to this. In terms of music, choreography is just absolutely beautiful. Chef's kiss.
Until pretty much the end of whatever arc they're a part.
And this is just bad.
Part of. That being said, there's not a single one you can reference as an anti-feat or a weakling among them. An example, when you refer to someone being downplayed like, oh, Revan is only downplayed to be Maul level, it just doesn't work.
If you don't know what this is from Jedi Fallen Order. This is a mod that they did to make this character look like Maul, and this character looks like Revan.
Take a similar approach that I did in my Saiyan ranking video.
We can watch this one if you want to.
I heavily recommend if you like Dragon Ball, by the way. And by that, I mean we will be ranking the Sith in general categories or tiers. As Star Wars scaling is very, very contentious. In fact, I'd argue it's the most nerdily debated about thing besides Goku versus debates. You'll see forums of people arguing about the same thing for almost a decade straight,
writing back as far as 20 plus years. Jesus.
Why this strongest Sith statement is above
well,
the
Star Wars
other.
has been around for a while,
so I just want to forewarn, by putting someone low on the list, I am by no means disrespecting them because I think every Sith is an absolute savage. Also, I need to clarify that
this one I do know. This one I do know. Nihilus, yeah, this one I do know.
Some dark cloaked guy with a red lightsaber, say such as the Inquisitors. Sith are a very particular set of individuals that have reached certain phases of development and recognition. At the end of the day, a Sith is a part of a religion, not just someone who uses the dark side. Example, Asajj, Dooku's apprentice, isn't a Sith because of the rule of two, which only allows 2 Sith at a time. She's just a dark side assassin.
She just uses the dark side of the Force.
This video will be using Legends canon, not Disney canon post 2014.
Good,
so no Kylo Ren.
Thank God. Oh boy, this was so fucking stupid. Imagine going to a movie and then at the beginning you see him do something cool like stop the blaster bolt right there in midair, and then you think, oh my god, this guy, like he's a real threat, look what he just did. And then later on you see him do that and it just immediately, whatever respect you had for the character just immediately went all the way down to 0, and then the movies after that don't really help. So yeah.
If you want a basic idea of what I think Kylo Ren,
you could also watch this one too if you want to,
capable of, and etc., you can watch my Darth Vader versus Kylo Ren video in the description. With that out of the way, we can get started. Starting with Class N, we have the Sith Triumvirate from Knights of the Old Republic 2, which is a group of 3 Sith named Traya, Sion, and Nihilus.
There's Nihilus.
One thing I would like to clarify is that video game Sith are rather bizarre.
I'm surprised he's this low on the list, though. I mean, considering what I know he could do, which we just saw him do early on in the video, I actually would have thought he'd be a lot higher.
As they can be either absurdly powerful on the pecking order or extremely weak depending on your interpretation. Due to this, I'll be presenting both sides of the argument for the video game Sith in particular, so don't jump the gun and get mad about Nihilus's placement quite yet. We'll talk about how you can throw hands higher on the list in just a second. The
Okay.
pecking order for the trio of Sith, though, at least by the end of Knights of the Old Republic 2, should see the restored Traya as stronger than Sion, seeing as she was able to force choke him while he had his saber drawn prepared to kill his former master.
Okay.
With Traya
So
stating
Traya
around the
above
same
Sion.
time that the power that Nihilus possessed was in a whole other realm above her own. Now, why that exactly places these three in their respective class is a statement made by both Traya herself, as well as the Knights of the Old Republic 2 game director and writer, Chris Avellone, where it is stated that Nihilus at the end of his power progression seen in-game was weaker than the ancient Sith Lords, with Naga Sadow being explicitly name-dropped here.
Yeah.
However, it should be mentioned that Traya imagined Nihilus to potentially become a threat to the entire galaxy and all life therein via his trademark prowess over Force Drain.
A potential threat to the entire doesn't necessarily mean you are.
This leads into a larger point, with even Chris Avellone stating that when it comes to a matchup such as Nihilus versus Naga Sadow, it's more than a matter of raw power. So considering Nihilus's ability to drain the life from entire planets, rather than his battle power per se with a lightsaber, as showcased in the events of Knights of the Old Republic 2, he could be placed much higher, as shown later in the video, and we'll go over who Nihilus in particular can defeat with his more special force abilities, despite his weirdly low battle power.
So, like I said, it's not so much that he is... it's not so much that he's more powerful, but it's his ability that makes him dangerous. And unless you have the ability to resist his the ability that he just used, then you're pretty much screwed, even if you are more powerful than him.
In Class M, we have Naga Sadow and Ludo Kresh. Sadow would naturally be placed above
Naga Sadow, who
Nihilus
just
in raw
got name
power,
dropped.
as already presented, with Ludo Kresh being relative to, but likely just being below Sadow, since Kresh was the only one of the two to have their blood spilled during their intense sword fight, implying Naga was stronger or a better duelist than him. Something to note is that the Sith Emperor Vitiate at one time feared the spirits of the ancient Sith, with Sadow being named explicitly to be a threat to his power. However, this is A, an early/weaker variant of Vitiate, and B, the statement refers to multiple Sith spirits being a threat to his power. So, it ultimately becomes very muddy and hard to quantify how this statement affects the scaling chain. If you take it to the utmost, then obviously the ancient Sith spirits would be a bit higher on the list, which I'll let you guys decide for yourselves. With that being said, we arrive at Class L, populated by Marco Ragnos, Freedon Nad, and Karness Mur. Not much is known about Ragnos' power while he was alive, however, this Sith spirit is implied to be stronger than either of those found in Class M, with Ludo claiming that Ragnos would crush Naga Sadow in an altercation. Freedon Nad was as well stated in the fact file number 90 to have become far more powerful than Sadow as well. Karness Mur is more so a Hax-based fighter, or character, like Nihilus, seeing as his spirit would simply adopt the power of whoever he can control via his Mur talisman. But to place his actual respective power, he has been compared to Ragnos and Freedon Nad, being stated to be a powerful Sith Lord in the same vein as the two noted regardless of his reliance on special and weird abilities. In Class K, we see Exar Kun and Ulic Qel-Droma. Exar, with his Sith amulet, was able to completely obliterate the spirit of Freedon Nad. Seeing as this amulet is standard equipment, it should be valid to consider this his practical combat strength. Ulic then faces Exar
This guy, I think I did hear about him at one point, Exar Kun, because the name is familiar.
Advantage over the other one, with the spirits of old crowning Exar as the Dark Lord, and Ulic claiming apprenticeship under him. Considering this alongside the statement from the complete encyclopedia calling Exar the most powerful Sith of all time.
Hold on. Killed by an overwhelming force of the Jedi, the dark spirit of Exar Kun survived across the vastness of time to challenge Luke Skywalker and a new group of Jedi trainees. Kun was tutored in the ways of the Force, and it continues. Okay, but this part I find interesting.
Those he would be above Ulic. In all honesty, though, they should probably be pretty interchangeable in terms of strength. There is an argument for at least a version of Exar Kun to be placed much higher, considering one's interpretation, which will be noted further along in the video, but as for now, If you think Exar is a lot stronger, hold your horses, because we will be going over the Exar stronger argument when that comes. We now reach Class J, featuring
these
Darth
two I
Malak
do
and
know,
Darth
especially
Revan.
Revan.
Again, keep in mind that I'm only taking into consideration these characters scaling while they fit at least a somewhat standard definition of a Sith Lord. Seeing as Revan is a fairly anomalous character, that would be especially important to note. With that in mind, Darth Revan should be fairly above Exar Kun, with the new Knights of the Old Republic remake trailer stating he is the greatest Sith in generations, with Exar only having died 2 years before Revan's birth. For those wondering, it has been all but stated that the Knights of the Old Republic remake will be set in the Legends timeline by members of the current Star Wars continuity team.
Okay, so that's a good thing. At least it doesn't mean that they're bringing him into the Disney canon, which I know would have pissed off a lot of people. If it's still the same story as the one in the Legends timeline, then I think, or the expanded universe, then I think that, yeah, that's definitely for the best.
Malak,
because I know a lot of people were worried about the game, because a lot of people really love Knights of the Old Republic, and yeah, I don't think it would have gone over well, because right now Disney, like, they cannot afford to piss off any more fans.
As well be placed in this class for giving Revan a desperate fight. He did lose pretty badly, however, with Revan slicing his jaw off. There is a statement from the Wizards of the Coast website that Malak was far more powerful than Exar Kun. It is questionable, however, if this would apply to base Malak, seeing as the article itself implies he is at his current level of power through the Starge 4 super weapon, which is basically a bunch of Jedi amping him. Either way, Malak was in control of the Starforge while he was the reigning Sith Lord, so either way, these two should be above the likes of those in Class K. Revan and Malak are characters, like I said earlier, that are those interchangeable
I don't know if I'll be able to get away with showing footage, but
Sith video game types that can be much higher based on interpretation, especially considering statements we'll go into soon. So I'll go over how high they can be with those interpretations as the time arises. Another thing about Revan specifically is that when he becomes a Jedi again, he's actually much more powerful, which makes his placement even harder to exactly quantify, since we aren't considering his Jedi progress or amps after he was the Dark Lord.
Well, I guess that makes sense, since it is a list of Sith, not Jedi.
Characters here originate from the Star Wars The Old Republic MMO, a game with many different campaigns and dialogue options, all determined by player choice. Those characters being the Emperor's Wrath, Darth Nox, and Darth Malgus. What can be said for both Wrath and Nox is that either of them can achieve the title of Outlander. The Outlander is stated to be Vishit's, at the time, greatest opponent. This would, of course, indirectly or directly scale him above Revan, who, during his novel, was shown for the first time channeling both sides of the Force and should be at his strongest up until then, scaling the Outlander above Class J. The fact that the Outlander is considered Vishit's greatest opponent, and Revan is one of Vishit's opponent, yet not the Outlander, would put these said Outlanders as stronger than him more than likely, which is why they're a class above. Malgus is shown being able to harm the Outlander with Force Lightning and Force Push, scaling to either Wrath or to Nox. This is, however, only considering Malgus' scaling as of now, and he could prove more powerful as the Star Wars The Old Republic content comes out and updates him.
Yeah, from what I understand, they're still not done with The Old Republic. Like, they're still adding new DLCs, which add to the story. So, yeah, I guess they could add some more DLCs, which basically make him a lot stronger than he already is, or like some new feeder statement that makes him stronger than maybe, the Emperor and basically other Siths that we're probably going to see in this list.
In Class H, we have the infamous Darth Bane.
This one I think everyone knows
to be the Sithari, the Sith answer to the Jedi Chosen One prophecy. Darth Bane would live up to the hype, seeing as he was stated to have garnered a greater mastery of Sith power and knowledge than anyone who had come before him in the Fact File Remake number 22. It should be said that this fact file was released after the Legends Disney canon distinction. However, the creators of the magazine stated that these early issues were written at a time when Legends was still canon, and had to pretty much rework many subsequent issues up to a certain point to accommodate the retcon. This statement would place Bane above anyone preceding him who would fall into what a Sith was defined to up to that point. There is some contention with this, however, as when he initially discovered the holocron of Darth Revan, Bane believed the rituals described to have been performed by the ancient Sith was too dangerous to attempt. However, this was a novice Bane, and not when he's in his peak, with this discovery taking place
novice.
in the first novel
novice?
of his trilogy. So coupled with the fact file statement, it would just mean that Bane was intimidated at
I don't know
first
if he
by
meant
the
novice
ancient
or
Sith,
nothing,
but eventually got the hang of it over his decades of training and studies, and surpassed his predecessors. Darth Bane would also create the Rule of Two, which is basically an order to keep the dark side energy in the galaxy focused in two individuals at a time. Whereas when there were numerous Sith in the galaxy, it somewhat diluted this focus and power. The other mechanic behind the Rule of Two is for masters and apprentices to grow stronger and stronger every generation until they could crush the Jedi Order.
Which they eventually
in Class
did.
G, we have the Sith who immediately succeeds Bane in the Rule of Two, that being Darth Zana and Darth Cognis. It's been stated in numerous sources that each generation of Sith following the line established by Bane grew in power. It was also noted by Sidious that Bane's actual power was directly transferred from person to person via the Rule of Two, meaning every Sith after Bane in his lineage would be stronger than Bane,
just keep getting
and
stronger and stronger.
The predecessors as the millennia passes until we eventually reach Sidious, where it becomes
And we all know
debatable
how
is
strong
when we
he
factor
was.
in Bane's internal scaling. See, Bane was, for a large chunk of his life, plagued with an infection known as the Orbalisk infection, which was stated to both empower his force abilities as well as degrade his physical strength, before removing the infection that had left his physical body worse for wear. So is the Mastery of Sith power statement only relevant to Bane pre-Orbalisk? When comparing Orbalisk Bane against post-Orbalisk removal self, I think it's fair to place his peak at taking place during the later stages of his life. This being based on the fact that in his final fight with his apprentice, Zana, he was stated to be moving faster than she thought possible, on top of Bane attacking her with greater force than he had when he was prior empowered by his Orbalisk Rage Amp. So, Bane would have likely gotten stronger after removing the Orbalisk through years of studying Sith knowledge, therefore they would all surpass this Bane, at least in the Rule of Two. That same power in Bane would then be granted to Darth Zana, Bane's apprentice, who ultimately defeated her master, with Darth Cognis being Zana's successor and about 30 other no-name Sith until we get up to Class F with Darth Tenebrous, who would naturally scale above the likes of Zana and Cognis per the Rule of Two, being 2 spots removed from the last of Bane's successors. In Class E, we have...
Is that it? We don't know anything else about Darth Tenebrous? It's... okay. Well, Maul, of course, everyone knows Maul, and Savage Opress, which, by the way, if you haven't watched the Clone Wars, highly, highly recommend it. It's pretty damn good. Season 1 is a little bit rough, I will admit, for me personally, but it did get better in Season 2, and from then onwards, it just keeps getting better and better. Season 6 was actually a dip in quality from Season 5. For me, from Season 5 was just, in my opinion, the best season in the entire show. Season 7, while the last 4 episodes for me were really, really good, it's the other episodes in Season 7 that kind of bring it down in quality, because for me, they were kind of meh. So yeah, again, if you haven't seen Clone Wars, I highly recommend it. Rebels, you know what? I would skip Season 1. I would start Season 2, and even then, I would only watch it just so you could get context for the finale, because the finale is pretty damn good. And Season 3 was okay. Season 3, my biggest disappointment with it is that it had a lot of promises that it just didn't keep. And it felt like, for me, the reason why they didn't keep those promises because it was under Disney, and Disney, like, they don't really like their main characters sort of, you know, being bad in any way. And then Season 4 was better. But in my opinion, I think, like, while Rebels, I don't think it was bad. I just think Clone Wars was a hell of a lot better, in my opinion. Like, Rebels was just like, you can tell this was like made under Disney but with Clone Wars, it was like, you can tell it was made with Lucasfilm pre-Disney, or made under Lucasfilm pre-Disney. So
Darth Maul at his peak during the Clone Wars, alongside his brother Savage.
And I know some people might say, well, what about what about these episodes? Wasn't it made with Disney? Well, yeah, but you got to remember, these episodes were already written before Disney took over. Like the scripts were already written, the storyboards, the animatics, they were already done. They just had to finish them. So yeah, I would say that a lot of this, I wouldn't give it to credit to Disney, because you can tell like this belongs in Clone Wars. It belongs in Lucasfilm pre-Disney. Like it doesn't feel like something that was put out by Disney.
All at his peak during the Clone Wars, alongside his brother Savage. He was stated in the Ultimate...
It was voiced fantastically by Clancy Brown, by the way.
...guidebook that Darth Maul's battle on Tatooine was proof that the Sith were deadlier than ever. This should place his power above the likes of Tenebrous, a Sith who had come before him. Keep in mind that this was an injured Maul, who then grows stronger until his peak in Clone Wars Season 5. Maul also has some pretty crazy hype for his time, being stated to be one of the deadliest Sith in the history of the entire order, could beat nearly anyone in unarmed combat, more lethal in battle than the most powerful Jedi, and generally just far more impressive accolades than Tenebrous. Savage would as well scale to these statements, seeing as Dooku notes that with training, Savage would rival the Phantom Menace Maul, with a stronger Maul than stated to complete Savage's training, with Dooku then sensing Savage's growing powers. In Class D, we have Darth Plagueis and Count Dooku. Plagueis at first goes from considering the ancient Sith such as Exar as being far more powerful, to then seeing himself as a peerless Sith throughout all of history, which is backed up by statements found in his novel acknowledging many prior Sith by name. Which places him above Class E is a statement made by Maul during the Clone Wars, which I'll get into soon. Sidious during the Phantom Menace would be relative to Plagueis, who is Sidious's original master, seeing as the author of the Plagueis novel implied that he could possibly undermine Sidious in a duel. To undermine someone would typically mean harming them via secrecy, so it's hard to say what this exactly means. However, based on the context, with this being a saber duel, it's likely it would have been something that would at least scale to Sidious.
Maybe I should pause because I don't want to take the chance.
Also, one has to remember that Sidious went out of his way to get his master drunk before trying to take his life, rather than just confronting him head on. With this scaling in mind, Maul noted that this same Sidious was stronger than anyone else he had ever encountered, such as Mother Talzin, someone who could do battle against a Clone War era Darth Sidious, a Sith who could, whenever he wanted, ragdoll both Maul and Savage. Count Dooku would as well fall into this tier of power.
R.I.P. Christopher Lee. Man.
Seeing as while fatigued, he was able to donate more energy to a Talzin Sidious force clash than the Darth Maul seen in Class E. This is the same class that Nihilus would likely fall into considering his hacks abilities, with top-tier prequel-era Jedi Mace Windu remarking that if Anakin couldn't learn the ability to resist
familiar with this. What is this? Let me know in the comments
that Nihilus
where
had,
this is from.
The entire Republic would be doomed. Meaning Nihilus could be placed all over this list, as it really comes down to who can resist his hacks. And if they can't, then Nihilus wins by default most of the time. In Mace Windu's own words, may have been able to end the Republic if he was the one that was attacking it. Which is why it's hard to place him so concretely. The reason Plagueis is not on the same tier as Sidious later is that Sidious, of course, gets stronger over the years, so Plagueis scaling to a weaker Sidious would not place him on the same tier as Sidious in his prime, or Sidious at his peak. In Class C, we have Starkiller. While his best feats are during a time when he wasn't a Sith apprentice, do you think I'd really make a Sith video without this guy? Even though he's not a Sith, I'm just doing this one for fan service. Starkiller was able to defeat Darth Vader 1 year before the Battle of Yavin, or the event of A New Hope. This places Starkiller above Class D, seeing as Vader as early as a year after Revenge of the Sith was stated to be far more powerful than someone who was stated to be able to outclass Mace Windu all across the board and was directly compared to Yoda's level of power. Both Mace and Yoda are able to face Sidious in Revenge of the Sith. However, after the time skip, Sidious would be a lot stronger. Even then, though...
they were able to face him, although personally I don't... Like, when it comes to the fight with Mace Windu, I think that was all staged because he was still trying to convince Anakin. Yeah, I personally think that maybe, I don't think Mace could have won, as powerful as he is. I just think Sidious was too strong. And even against Yoda, I think it's stated in the... in one of the novels, I think it's the Revenge of the Sith novel that Yoda couldn't do anything against Sidious. I could be wrong, but I do remember reading something that says that Yoda, like as strong as he was, couldn't compete with Sidious, and that's why he had to leave.
Sidious in Revenge of the Sith, while weaker than his time skip self, should be stronger than any Sith before him via the Rule of Two. Keep in mind, however, that the Vader scene in The Force Unleashed 1 would in no way represent the peak of his power. As well, note that while Starkiller was seen doing battle with Sidious, it didn't seem like it was doing all that much to the Sith Lord.
Yeah, I mean, look at him. He was laughing, basically telling him, like, come on, you could do better than this, come on.
With guides stating that Galen Marek, also known as Starkiller, was no match for Sidious. The Dark Lord tanking a point-blank final explosion containing Starkiller's full power. We could talk about Starkiller's clone, however, he pretty much disassociates with Vader and the Sith almost immediately, so he really isn't in the conversation of most powerful Sith, even kind of being generous and fanservice-y. In Class B, we have Darth Vader. As represented by his peak of power in Return of the Jedi, Vader is a pretty controversial character to place among certain corners of debate, and it's pretty honestly clear to see why. There seems to be two lanes of thought, the George Lucas camp claiming Vader to be a washed-up, depressed cyborg man with diminished powers when compared to his Jedi self, or he's a force of nature forged through decades of self-actualization, study, and combat. But seeing as this is a Legends video in the actual material of the EU, Vader is depicted as a beast.
Well, he is, don't get me wrong, but in regards to what he said about the George Lucas version, Lucas, I think if I remember correctly, made a statement that says, Vader at this point, while he may be stronger than Anakin was in Revenge of the Sith, he's still nowhere near as strong as what Anakin would have been if he hadn't lost to Obi-Wan and, lost all of his limbs and was set on fire by the heat from the lava. And basically, like, his body was injured and he needed all these cybernetic enhancements just to live. And he has to keep constantly going back to that tank that he's in, which I forget what it's called, but he has to keep going back to it in order to heal his body. And I think it's because it's the only place where he's capable of actually resting, getting to sleep basically. But yeah, I just wanted to say that in case there's someone who does know. Again, I may not know a lot about the EU or a lot of lore in regards to Star Wars outside of the movies and the TV shows, but this much I do know.
In the Force Unleashed 2 novel, the Starkiller's clones' battle is fairly one-sided, with Vader dominating the saber duel against this stronger version of Galen Marek, only losing through a combination of being off-guarded and exposed to Force lightning. Something showed to interfere with Vader's life support and thus
his suit was very susceptible to Force lightning, and I think
Luke Skywalker further nerfed him.
I also
Vader
remember
would reach
hearing
his apex of power and return
or reading
the Jedi.
that
After losing to
Palpatine
a
made it that way on
dark
purpose.
side Aunt Luke while he himself was conflicted and nerfed, he was able to physically restrain and withstand the full power Force lightning of Darth Sidious post-time skip and at his pretty much peak before Dark Empire, despite being particularly weak to lightning as well, with the reborn Emperor Palpatine noting that Vader did possess the Force strength necessary to kill him all along. Further proof of Vader and Sidious getting stronger over time is how Vader is able to destroy himself from a few years ago or so due to A, various sources saying Old Ben scales to Vader in New Hope, and B, Vader considering Luke in Empire Strikes Back to be above Old Ben and the strongest Jedi, even including Obi-Wan. This Luke being someone he dominates easily, while probably conflicted and weakened. If you want Vader to be higher, you'd have to utilize the idea that Sidious says that Vader is strong enough to kill him. However, detractors debate what exactly this means, as well as the fact this would only put Vader in a similar category while he is pretty objectively stated to be weaker. Sidious only gets stronger since this statement in Dark Empire as well. Thus, we get to Sidious ranking in Class A. It should be pretty clear. He's stated numerous times to be the most powerful Sith, if not the most powerful being ever born. Period. Through decades of training and preparation, learning the deepest secrets the Force has to offer. He's become close to a genuine Force entity, existing more so as a being of energy rather than flesh. His knowledge of the dark side runs so deep to its very depths that he can devise entirely new techniques on the fly, harnessing the higher dimensional energies of hyperspace to threaten the entirety of space. He's a real titan, and could very well be placed higher depending how far you believe his statements of being the most powerful Sith extend to, timeline-wise. Based on certain factors, however, such as Luke Skywalker's power progression eclipsing Sidious in terms of raw power, he may very well stop here though. Valkorion would as well likely fit in this class. He would at the very least be far stronger than the likes of the Spirit of Revan, seeing how pretty much everyone in the galaxy is trying to prevent Revan from reviving Vitiate, knowing they'd all be hopeless if he came back. Valkorion as well has some pretty significant lore that isn't really seen outside of those featured in this tier, being described as a godlike embodiment of the dark side, an accolade he shares with Sidious. Valkorion would as well bypass the Bane supremacy over all Sith before him, as his motivations and identity fall outside of the Sith religion, even ultimately becoming an enemy of the faction in his later forms, justifying his placement above the Rule of Two since he's not a part of it. Narratively, this placement would as well be supported as Vitiate was clearly created as an ancient analog of Sidious, both being Sith Emperors working from the shadows, sending masked, conflicted thralls to do their bidding. There do exist hushed whispers regarding certain statements directly comparing Valkorion to Sidious, but until those are found, the debate isn't likely to end anytime soon. Especially with Sidious possessing
the guy who made the Twitter statement deleted it.
If he's Sith or not. As I foreshadowed earlier, the Sith spirit of Exar Kun would as well fall into this class, as Luke considered his power to be just as vast as any he had ever encountered. There's some debate over if Exar Kun was more powerful as a living being or as a Sith spirit, which would change the scaling chain entirely. In fact, it would flip it on its head, with the writer of Exar's comic appearances allegedly stating this spirit that Luke comments on is actually weaker than he was in life.
Really?
However, he could be referring to the spirit Exar that he wrote, which would be a suppressed being compared to that in his novel appearances. That being someone who had drained various Jedi students until reaching his height of power. But no matter which version you consider, this would be your hypothetical peak Exar would scale to, relative to Dark Empire Sidious. This is as well an alternate placement for Sith Malak and Revan if you consider the statement made regarding a set of miniatures released around 2008, which states that Revan sits along Sidious and Darth Vader as the most powerful Sith Lords in history. However, this statement contradicts a fair amount of the verse, such as the fact that in Knights of the Old Republic itself, Malak states that Jedi Revan is stronger than he was as a Sith Lord, with Malak still considering himself superior to Revan, even being downright baffled at his loss. So based on this alone, Malak should be among these most powerful Sith Lords in history, but he's absent from the set. This minifigure set also features Sidious in his original trilogy design, alongside Imperial officers who were shown killed in Empire Strikes Back, contradicting the numerous statements of Sidious's peak being in Dark Empire. The statement mostly seems like marketing hype to get you to buy some minifigures.
Yeah, it's probably just that
at face value and ignoring
bunch
the
of words that they're using just
Revan
to get people to buy
would be at least
shit.
around Sidious tier, possibly even higher if you think Revan is stronger than Exar Kun, and you take the writer's statement of Exar being stronger in life than his spirit to its maximum interpretation, which would actually make Revan stronger than Sidious and Valkorion, which gets a little bit awkward in debates, but is possible. Class S, the strongest Sith Lords of all time. Most people generally agree with this, although it's Star Wars, so there's always debate to be made.
Yeah, unfortunately that's the case in Star Wars, and it's not just Star Wars, it's every fandom. There's always going to be debates no matter what. Even if you present them with concrete proof, doesn't matter. They're still not going to accept it.
The justification for the placements in this class are they're scaling to basically Luke Skywalker when he's the Grand Master of the Jedi after Sidious is defeated, who was able to, decades prior, while amped by Leia, overpower peak Sidious in Dark Empire. He is then later on stated to be stronger than ever before, including his amped self, which beat Sidious. To start with, we have Darish Vol, who is stated to have much the power of Luke, hard to exactly place, he would at least be at the bottom of this class. We then have the Dark Lady Lumaya, who during the Legacy of the Force era was able to mortally harm Luke with her light whip, even briefly physically stalemating the bloodlusted Grandmaster. Darth Vader.
Well, when it comes to that, and again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but wasn't it that the reason why Luke lost is because he wasn't used to actually fighting against an opponent who had that kind of weapon? Like, didn't he later train himself and had like a second lightsaber and taught himself a completely new fighting style and then just completely handled her like she was nothing? Again, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm misremembering things. Let me know in the comments. So just wanted to comment on that when it comes to his duel against Lumia.
Even briefly physically
or Lumaya, however you pronounce her name.
Grandmaster. Darth Vader, who is basically Legends Kylo Ren,
Jason
puts up
Solo.
a much better fight against an enraged Grandmaster Luke than Lumaya. Darth Krayt, Luke's dark side match, who was able to fight relative to Skywalker against Abel.
Well, when it comes to Kaitis, yeah, he did put up a good fight, but I think if I remember correctly, he still lost. Like, he still ended up losing, and the only reason why the fight didn't end is because Luke had to leave, because he realized that if he killed him, he would have done so in anger and it would have probably led him down the dark side. And he, I think if I remember correctly, realized that it wasn't his place to take down Kaitis or Jason. Again, I could be misremembering. Let me know in the comments.
Being able to puncture her body, even resisting her force blast. Kaitis could be argued above this, however, seeing as Jason Solo was stated to be the most powerful Sith in the galaxy, with Darth Krayt technically being in the galaxy at the time, albeit in stasis. And finally, Sarasu Talon, a member of the Lost Tribe of the Sith, who, after exposing himself to one half of Abeloth's power source, Abeloth being the mother of the Force, was able to blitz and telekinetically manipulate a prime Luke Skywalker. Anyway, with that out of the way, I hope you guys enjoyed. This video was written by my good pal Crisis, who I'll link down in the description. He saw my Vader versus Kylo video and saw that people wanted to see Legend stuff really bad and not Disney stuff, and said, I'm your guy, so we decided to work on this together. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to give him a look if you liked what was said in this video, or just want more Star Wars stuff. Until next time.
Okay, so that's going to be the video. Now, I'm going to just end this real quick because I don't want this video to go on for too long, but yeah, when it comes to his list, I do agree when it comes to Sidious being above Vader, and then let's see, who else was after that, if I remember correctly. I think it was Sidious, if I remember. And yeah, there's the Emperor Valkorion, but I think it was above them. But let's see. Yeah, and then of course you've got Darius, Lumia, Kaitis, Krayt, and Sarasu. Again, all of this doesn't make sense. I don't think there's anything really too contentious. I can't comment on what's on all the other characters on the list, with the exception of maybe Bane. Yeah, everything from Bane afterwards I think does make sense, because it does fit in with what is established in the expanded universe in regards to the rule of two, being that, you know, when the apprentice defeats the master's power goes into the apprentice, and then it just continues until they basically reach Sidious and Vader. Although I think that's kind of where it ended, because Vader did eventually take out Palpatine, but he did it when he was Anakin, not Vader. And I think that's kind of where it ended until it was brought back later on. I can't remember exactly where, but I do remember reading a story in the expanded universe where it did kind of come back. I can't remember what story it was exactly. So if you know it, let me know in the comments. But yeah, I can't find anything here, again, too contentious. But if you are someone who's watching this video and you know more about Star Wars than I do, if there's anything here that you would, let's say, disagree with, and you want to comment on, you know, what you would sort of add to what Seth stated in this video, just let me know about it in the comment section down below. And while you're here, consider leaving a like, share this video, subscribe if you haven't, make sure to ring the bell for notifications, and check out the description for links to this video, Seth's channel, so you can head on over there and support him, as well as a link to my second channel. Consider heading on over there and subscribing, because I will be posting content there that I can't post here, because there's a chance it might you know, eventually get in trouble later down the line. So there you go. With that being said, thank you guys so much again. I hope you enjoyed the video, and bye for now.